Okay, for number 1, you have your point of 4, 2, and your slope of positive 3. We're using our point slope form, which you also have on page 72 of your math journal with our point slope flip chart. So I'm replacing y1 with positive 2. I'm replacing m with 3, parentheses x minus x1, which in this case is 4. Now that we replaced m, x1, and y1, now we can go on to distribute. 3 times x, which just gives me 3x. 3 times negative 4, which gives me negative 12. On the left-hand side, I still have y minus 2. Now that we've distributed using rainbow, now we can isolate y by doing the opposite of subtracting 2, which is adding 2. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. Negative 2 plus 2, that gives you 0. Y is by itself. That's equal to 3x minus 10 because of negative 12 plus 2. Remember, same sign add, different sign subtract. Number 2, same point slope form of y minus y1. This time around, y1 is positive 3 equals m, which here equals to negative 2 times x minus x1, which is 0. Okay, now let's do rainbow. Negative 2 times x, well, that just gives us negative x. Negative 2 times negative 0, well, that's just going to give us 0. And we really don't need the 0 there. Now on the left-hand side, you still have y minus 3. So for slope-intercept form, we want y by itself. If I'm subtracting 3, the opposite is to add 3. And don't forget, what you do to one side, you do to the other. Negative 3 plus 3, this goes away. You're left with y equals to negative 2x plus 3. Number 3, same form again, using point slope form of y minus y1, which in this case is negative 7, equals m, which here is negative 1, times x minus x1, which here is a positive 1. Okay, so for this one, we're not only going to have to use rainbow, but we're also going to have to simplify our double negative. Remember, when you have a double negative, that becomes a positive, giving me y plus 7. Now on the right-hand side, negative 1 times x, well, that just gives me negative 1x. And then negative 1 times negative 1, that gives me positive 1. Now let's go ahead and simplify and isolate y. If we're adding 7, the opposite is subtracting 7. And don't forget, what you do to one side, you do to the other. Plus 7 minus 7 becomes 0. That goes bye-bye. Y is by itself. You have a negative 1x. Remember, you do not need the 1 there, though. It stays invisible. You just need the negative sign. And plus 1 minus 7 leaves me with minus 6, giving me my equation of y equals negative x minus 6. Okay, for number 4, same point slope form of y minus y1, which in this case is negative 3, equals m, which is negative 3/5, times the difference of x minus x1, which here is negative 5. Notice how this time around you have 2 sets of double negatives, which we're going to have to simplify. So here I have a negative times a negative, which gives me positive. Now making it y plus 3. And then same thing on the right-hand side. A negative times a negative gives me a positive. Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and distribute using rainbow. You have negative 3/5 times x, giving us negative 3/5 of x. And then negative 3/5 times 5, giving me negative 3. On the left-hand side, I still have y plus 3. So remember, to get rid of something, you always do the opposite. If I'm adding 3, the opposite is going to be to subtract 3. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. Plus 3 minus 3, that just becomes 0. This goes bye-bye. You're left with y by itself on the left-hand side. That's going to equal to negative 3/5 of x minus 6. Remember, same sign add, different sign subtract. Number 5, still using point slope form. Y minus y1, which in this case is 6, is equal to m, which is 1/4, times the difference of x minus x1, which here is negative 8. And again, notice our double negative. So we're going to have to simplify it. A negative times a negative gives me a positive, giving me x plus 8. Now let's go ahead and distribute. 1/4 times x, that gives me 1/4 of x. And then 1/4 times 8, that gives me plus 2. On the left-hand side of your equation, you still have y minus 6. Remember, we want y by itself, so I'm going to have to get rid of 6 by doing the opposite. If I'm subtracting 6, the opposite is to add 6. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. Minus 6 plus 6, that becomes 0. Y is by itself. And it's going to equal to 1/4 of x plus 8. Okay, for number 6, y minus y1, which in this case is negative 4, equals m, which equals to negative 2/3, times the difference of x minus x1, which here is 9. Same thing again. Notice how we have that double negative. So we're going to have to simplify that. A negative times a negative gives me a positive, giving me y plus 4. And then from there you can distribute. Negative 2/3 times x just gives you negative 2/3 of x. And then negative 2/3 times negative 9 gives me positive 6. Because notice how they are both negative. Now, we want to get y by itself. So to isolate y, we have to get rid of the 4. If I'm adding 4, the opposite is going to be to subtract 4. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. 4 minus 4 gives me 0. Y is now by itself. And it's going to equal to negative 2/3 of x plus 2. Because 6 minus 4 leaves me with positive 2. Giving me my equation of y equals negative 2/3 of x plus 2. Okay, 7. You have your x1, y1, and your m. Point slope form is y minus y1, which in this case is negative 6. And that's going to equal to m, which is 5/6, times the difference of x minus x1, which here is positive 6. Notice you have that double negative again. A negative times a negative gives you a positive. Therefore, on the left-hand side of our equation, we have y plus 6 now. From here, let's go ahead and do our distribution. Rainbow, 5, 6 times x. Well, that just gives me 5, 6 of x. And then 5, 6 times negative 6. And positive times a negative is going to give me negative. And this is going to be negative 5. From here, remember now we have to isolate y. I want y by itself and I'm adding 6 to it. The opposite of adding 6 would be to subtract 6. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. 6 minus 6 gives me 0. I'm left with y equals to 5/6 of x minus 11. Because you have a negative 5 and then a negative 6. Together would give you negative 11. So your equation for number 7 would be y equals 5/6x minus 11. Okay, for number 8, x1 is negative 8, y1 is 9, and m is going to equal to negative 3/2. Same point slope form, y minus y1 is equal to m times the difference of x minus x1. Notice our double negative. We're going to have to simplify that. A negative times a negative gives you positive. So now I have x plus 8. From here, we're going to distribute negative 3/2 times x. Well, that just gives you negative 3/2x. And then negative 3/2 times 8. That gives you negative 12. On the left-hand side, you still have y minus 9. Now remember, we want y by itself. Therefore, to get rid of the minus 9, I have to do the opposite and add 9. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. Minus 9 plus 9, that gives you 0. Y is by itself, equaling to negative 3/2x minus 3. Because negative 12 plus 9 is going to leave you with a difference of 3. And then same sign, you keep the sign different, you keep the larger. So now our equation for 8 is going to be y equals negative 3/2 of x minus 3. For number 9, x1 will be negative 2, y1 will be negative 11, your slope will be m. Therefore, y minus y1, which is negative 11, equals m, which is 4, times the difference of x minus x1. Notice again, we have double negatives. So I'm going to first have to simplify. A negative times a negative gives me a positive, giving me y plus 11 now. And then a negative times a negative gives me a positive, making this x plus 2. Now we can distribute 4 times x. Well, that's going to give me 4x. And then 4 times 2 is going to give me 8. On the left-hand side, you still have y plus 11. Remember, you want y by itself, so what's the opposite of adding? Subtracting. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. 11 minus 11, this becomes 0. Y is now by itself. Bring down your 4x. And then 8 minus 11 leaves us with negative 3, giving us the equation of y equals 4x minus 3. Okay, number 10. This time x1 is negative 4, y1 is 0, and m is half. Still using our point slope form, you have y minus y1, which is 0, equal to m, which is half, times the difference of x minus x1. So from here, when subtracting 0, it's not going to change the value. So here on the left-hand side, we basically can already just get rid of the minus 0. Now on the right-hand side, we're going to have to simplify because once again, you have a double negative. And negative times negative gives you positive. From here, let's go ahead and do rainbow. Distribute out 1/2 times x, giving me 1/2 of x. And then 1/2 times 4, giving me positive 2. Y is already by itself on the left-hand side. So now we have our final equation of y equals 1/2 of x plus 2.